I wouldn't say it's a slam dunk that every guy they meet with they want. Sometimes they just want to get a question answered, but the process is too condensed. The time is too valuable. You're going to meet with players that you have interest in. If I said to you, bet everything you got on either Brendan Rice, Luke McCaffrey, or Frank Gore Jr. becoming a Niner, the three guys with actual ties to guys who were either in or are in the organization. Who do you think? Yeah, are they most likely to go for Rice, Rice's son, McCaffrey's brother, or Gore's son?
It's really interesting, too, because you're talking about Niner legends here. Jerry Rice is the best wide receiver of all time. Frank Gore is one of the best running backs in the history of the Niners organization. He's third all time in rushing yards. And Christian McCaffrey undoubtedly is the best running back in football right now, coming off the season in which he was the NFL Offensive Player of the Year, had more than 2,000 all-purpose yards, led the NFL in carries and yards, and now they all have ties to this organization with this 2024 draft class. Frank Gore Jr., I'd say, would be the least likely because he's had an informal interview with the Niners. But as a late-round pick, UDFA, I don't think that you can rule it out. Luke McCaffrey is interesting because he actually started his college career as a quarterback at Nebraska, and he made the switch to wide receiver. And obviously his father, Ed McCaffrey, was able to help him with that. I asked him today how Christian was able to help him with his footwork and his route running, because I think McCaffrey is so underrated in that regard. Everybody labels him as a running back. I label him as a weapon, a guy who can really just do it all. And he's surgical with his route running and his footwork. And Luke even said, my dad and my brother, they've helped me out in a bunch of ways. And then you have Brendan Rice, who's a really interesting wide receiver. And digging around here at the combine throughout this week, I've asked the question, is it Lincoln Riley that was the problem last year at USC because they were bad? Was it the offensive system? I've kind of gathered that maybe some of the issues were with the offensive staff. And I thought that that was pretty interesting and not necessarily the play calling. I think Brendan Rice is a really, really interesting prospect who had some really good production. I don't think he's going to be the likes of his brother or his father, But if I were to rank those three as far as probability, I would go Brendan Rice number 1, Luke McCaffrey number 2, and then Frank Gore Jr. number 3. But all are kind of interesting in a way. Brendan Rice is a really solid wide receiver. You have the positional switch for Luke McCaffrey, and I kind of like that versatility. The Niners really value that in prospects. And then Frank Gore is asked, what's the difference between him and his dad? He thinks he's more agile. His dad obviously brought a little bit more thump to the table. But as a backup running back, what's the future look like behind Christian McCaffrey, who has 2 more years on his contract? Elijah Mitchell's always hurt. You have Jordan Mason, who the coaching staff, I don't think, trusts with his ability to pass block. Could they take a flyer on Frank Gore? I think this is a really cool story, and it's also fascinating to follow as we approach draft time at the end of April.
Yeah, no question about it. I'm eager to see what Rice's kid runs because he's big and I think he's a terrific receiver. He runs good routes. He's got good hands. You can see he's very serious about his craft. If he runs anything sub 4.5 at 6'3", 6'4", whatever he is, that's probably going to be, make him a for sure day 2 pick. I like Brendan Rice. I think he's a really good NFL wide receiver, and I think he's going to be, unlike a lot of rookie receivers that come into the league and struggle. I think this guy might hit the ground running just because I think he's advanced in a lot of ways.
Yeah, what's interesting too is that you can tell that these 3 prospects have such an NFL pedigree within their family. Luke McCaffrey takes the stand, and he was in control of everything. And the media gathering around him was multiple people deep. There was a lot of people who wanted to talk to him. And he was like pointing who's asking the question next. And he was so in control. And then Brendan Rice had a really good personality. He wasn't fazed at all. And then Frank Gore Jr. had a great personality. And you could just tell that their family and their fathers, or in Luke McCaffrey's case, his brother, really helped prepare him for this moment where some of the bright lights, all of the media attention. There are so many cameras. Some prospects are a little bit gun shy. These guys were just having such a great time and a lot of fun having this opportunity and living in the moment.
I know Christian is really excited about the idea of playing with Luke, and I know he's going to be in Lynch's ear on day 3 of the draft. My only question, I guess, is also what does McCaffrey run? Because, Christian seems to think he's going to run great. Watching his film, I would say that he's not going to run great, but we'll see. To me, if he doesn't run great, I think he's got a better chance to be a Niner than if he does. But just simply because I think they're, by the time they get around to, hey, let's grab Christian's brother, I think they're going to be in the 5th or 6th round, and I don't know if he's going to be on the board in the 5th or 6th round. Any of these prospects that you talk to seem real eager to play for the 49ers, or is there a prospect that you've talked to, you said, you know what, man, I absolutely think that guy's going to be a Niner?
So many of them, and it's actually really impressive how many of the players who have taken the podium have been so complimentary of either the Niners organization, the front office, or the roster and the talent on the roster. Specifically with the linebackers the other day, which linebackers do you like watching? So many of them said, I model my game after Fred Warner, fast like Fred Warner. Some of the other bulkier linebackers said, I like to model my game after Dre Green. I think he's a really underrated player who really brings the boom on that Niners defense. So that was at linebacker. And then some of the wide receivers talked about how Brandon Ayuk is such a great route runner and a technician, how he has this great footwork, and that allows him to really accelerate and then stop and then accelerate again and win some of the one-on-one matchups. Chop Robinson is a player who Mel Kiper mocked to the Niners at 31, and then he runs a 4.4 40-yard dash. He said, I model my game after Nick Bosa and TJ Watt, but I don't think he's going to be available for San Francisco now at 31 for 2 reasons. He ran fast and he has just an incredible first step. And then at the safety position, this was of note as well. Talanoa Hufanga is a younger player. He was an All-Pro in year 2, and in year 3, his season got cut short because of that torn ACL. But a lot of the safeties said, I really like Talanoa Hufanga's game, Kalen Bullock being one of them. He went to USC. But it's just interesting that a lot of the players here, even with some of the younger players on this Niners roster, they've taken notice of just the talent that San Francisco has been able to compile. And then lastly, before I throw it back to you, a lot of these young players are just Niner fans. I think that's because a lot of the success that San Francisco has been able to have in recent years, but also just the long-term success that this organization has been able to have in winning 5 Super Bowls and being one of the blue bloods in the National Football League. I talked to Max Melton, Rutgers cornerback, who said he grew up in South Jersey, and he grew up a Niner fan. His brother grew up a Cowboys fan. So to Max Melton's brother, he made the wrong choice. Max Melton obviously made the right choice, but he's a long corner, really experienced. The Niners really like players who are heady. To go to Rutgers, you of course have to be a very intellectual player, but he's long, he's rangy, he's physical, and he said he would love to play for the San Francisco 49ers. In fact, he said going back to the Senior Bowl, he met with the Niners 5 to 6 times.